Before I start, I would like to insist on the fact that from all the members of my team, we had the same impression that is a great experience for us to work with you, and also to develop internal interaction between us, because we are a relatively large group with different specialties and different types of interests. And this was really an opportunity for us to develop internal interactions as well as external ones. So the topic was the new approaches to sustainable finance. And we realized that it's a very preliminary step, if you like, because there are so many different dimensions to sustainable finance. And it's really like, I had the impression while I was preparing those slides, it's really like a patchwork where we are putting together many different small contributions. But so each of them may be minor, but when you put all of them together, you have really a good sense of what's going on. And so I don't have enough time to go into the detail of each of them. So I will briefly touch upon each of them in a row. I will start by something that was a partnership with private researchers outside the university system, and also with corporations that were interested in the development of a social stock exchange in Switzerland. I will come back to that in a moment. Then I will touch upon the notion of the responsible investors. That is, many investors claim that they act in a responsible manner, but it's not clear that they do it actually. So the question was, do responsible investors really invest responsibly? Another question was the role of institutional investors. Do they have a specific role to play in the transition towards a green economy? Another aspect which will come out also in other sub-projects, it's the notion that there is a lot of disagreement in the ratings of firms and projects, in particular in the environmental, but also social and governance aspects. And so what's the impact of this disagreement on the return for investors? I will also briefly touch upon a question that was raised during the pandemic. It's something that was not initially in our program, but we realized that maybe the pandemic would stop the progress of microfinance, and microfinance has a very important role to play in sustainability, especially in developing countries. And finally, I will talk about the role of green bonds in trying to understand a paradox related to those special forms of investment vehicle. So let me start by studying the viability of a social stock exchange in Switzerland. In fact, this was the first study in our program that was completed already 2 years ago. And it has continued, but with other funding resources. So the idea was to look at the possibility to create a social stock exchange in Geneva or in Switzerland. And the reason for that was a perception that there was a social demand for that, not only because Switzerland appears as a domain of excellence in terms of financial infrastructure, in particular the stock exchange and payment system, but also because there is a lot of demand for social investment. And so the idea was to see whether the project could be undertaken. So we tried to analyze the different challenges associated with that. And in particular, the notion that you need to establish strategic partnership. And you cannot do that on your own. You have to do that in relation with the existing ecosystem, and in particular, develop cooperations with the traditional stock exchange, because they have expertise in terms of the infrastructure. And also something which is really important is the impact measurement. That is the fact that it can only work if you can establish in a credible fashion that what you do has an impact on the environment. Okay, and this is not easy. So after the project was completed in 2019, the team has continued to work, but outside of the scope of this particular study. But the idea basically is to try to develop connection with the private sector that is transitioning from something that was more like an NGO-led initiative to something which is more social business, in which you want to promote social purposes, but you do that in a way that is viable from a financial point of view. And so for that, the sub team has developed contacts for additional fundraising, and also for hiring an entrepreneur, and they are doing that. And of course, it takes time. So for the moment, nothing has been signed yet, but they are going in the right direction. Okay. So again, I don't know if you have questions. Maybe you can. You can ask them right now, because as you will see, the other projects are quite different. So I don't know if it's a good time to start. But otherwise,
I think you should. I suggest you continue, Jean-Jacques, okay. And then we have time during the panel discussion. And now it's only clarifying questions, and you have some 7 minutes left.
Okay. Oh, okay. I see. So I have to speed up a little bit. Okay. So another question is the fact that everybody now claims to be, responsible. Every investor, especially in this institutional investor, appears to be responsible. Okay. And the question is that true or not? So we analyzed a data set from the PRA, which is the Principle for Responsible Investment, which is the largest investment network on responsible investments, which already manages more than $100 trillion. And we have more than 3,000 signatories. And we analyzed the behavior of those signatories who officially commit to behave in a responsible fashion. And it turned out that it was a big disappointment that only the signatories from outside the US do really indeed invest responsibly. And in particular, the US signatories, especially the ones with with poor financial performance and poor ESG performance as well, tend to greenwash, that is to sign the PRI agreement, but not really to invest responsibly. So again, this problem of greenwashing that appears in a recurrent fashion. The next topic is the role of institutional investors. Institutional investors are increasingly interested in ESG investing, more than 70 trillion in assets under management, according to the most recent figures. And the question is, what is the impact of the Rochet Sustainability on the performance of these institutional investors? And so the main finding, if you like, is that the institutional investors that have a better equity portfolio level sustainability exhibit a higher risk-adjusted performance. So it means that even if you take into account presumably the higher risk of investing in those responsible projects, it turns out that it proves the performance of those investors. And we believe the channel is really the fact that there is more and more demand by concerned investors for sustainability. And this put a price pressure on the high sustainability stocks. That is, the companies that are identified as green benefit a lot from this image. Another aspect is the disagreement on the rating, ESG ratings. But since I'm running a bit out of time, I will probably skip this one, and I'm open to answering questions, of course. So let me touch upon the last two things I wanted to discuss. It's the impact of the COVID on the progress of microfinance. So my colleagues Michael Hall and Martinez have looked at the financing of what is called off-grid solar energy access in emerging countries. That is basically the small devices that people can buy in order to produce their own electricity by using solar resources. And they have implemented a survey trying to understand the position of the different stakeholders, that is the customers, the companies that produce those devices, and the investors that finance those companies, in terms of the impact of the COVID. Will COVID stop the progress of these microfinance channels? And it turned out that there is of course, this is only a survey, so we cannot. This has to be tested by practice. But it seems to be that most aspects are optimistic, in the sense that there will be a temporary reduction in income and ability to pay for consumers, and there will be some the operational disruption for the producers, and also the fact that many investors will be less tempted to invest in risky projects. But all in all, the feeling was that this was only temporary, and provided that those small businesses continue to get some support, either from their own governments or from international organizations, then the progress of microfinance will only be delayed but not stopped. Finally, I would like to discuss a little bit the project on green bonds. And basically, with my colleague Doban and Italy, we have examined the impact of certifying green bonds in the corporate sector. So why do I insist on the word certified? Is because, once again, the green bonds, self-declared green bonds, which are the particular bonds that are supposed to be committed, the proceeds of the issuance are committed to the financing of green projects. And we know that if they are not certified by the independent organization, a rating agency, or an NGO, it has no impact on the CO2 emissions, or more generally on the greenness of projects. So we are focused on certified green bond, because there you have the intervention of an independent organization that assesses the greenness of the project. And it turns out that this is quite successful. It's quite successful both from the point of view of the volume of bonds that are issued by those companies. It's still small compared to the global bond market, but it grows exponentially. It also contributes significantly to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And interestingly, it also has a positive impact on firm values. That is, the firms that issue green bonds have an abnormal positive stock return. So it benefits everyone, if you like. And this is surprising, because if you look at the data, you realize that those green bonds are not cheaper than ordinary bonds. You could have the impression that concerned investors are ready to have a lower return if they invest in green bonds in order to finance green projects, but it's not what happened for reasons that I don't have the time to explain. It turns out that green bonds cost exactly the same as ordinary bonds for companies. And so the question is, why would a shareholder or a manager who is interested only in the financial performance, why would they issue green bonds? That's the puzzle. And we find that, in fact, the most plausible explanation, there may be others, but the most plausible explanation is that those green bonds are a signal of the capacity of firms to implement decarbonization, to participate in the transition. So those green bonds have to be viewed as a way for companies to differentiate themselves from business as usual. The companies that will be able to sustain the transition. And these signaling mechanisms are in fact complementary to other certification processes for consumers as investors. But the crucial thing is that this has to be credible. And this will be my conclusion. That is, the key takeaway from all those contributions, which are very different from one another, but in fact, they are complementary in the sense that they all tend to show that it's crucial to develop certified and reliable data sets and ratings and certification processes for, in particular, the environmental performance of companies. So this is something that Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England, has pushed a lot. But I think that that's a crucial thing. It's absolutely necessary to be able for investors, entrepreneurs, consumers, and citizens to have access to the data, to know exactly what is going on in order to drive our economies on a sustainable path. And I think I will stop here. Thank you for your attention.